Jake Morrison felt tired. Not the kind of tired that comes from missing sleep, but the deep weariness that settles in your bones when you have been fighting the same battle for too long. He sat in the big silver chair that humans were given in the council room, looking at the 12 alien creatures who thought they ruled the galaxy. The council room was huge. It had walls that sparkled like diamonds and a ceiling so high you could barely see it. The aliens sat on golden thrones that floated in the air, while the humans got simple metal chairs on the floor. This alone told Jake everything he needed to know about what these aliens thought of his people. For 3 long years, Jake had come to this place. 3 years of polite words and careful speeches. 3 years of asking for simple things like the right to trade with other worlds, or to protect human ships in space. And for 3 years, the aliens had said no to almost everything. Captain Lisa Martinez watched from the glass viewing area above. She had been Jake's friend for 20 years, ever since they served together on the first human ship to leave the solar system. She could see the tension in his shoulders, the way his hands gripped the arms of his chair. Lisa knew that look. Jake was reaching his breaking point. The Zephyrian delegate spoke first, as always. It looked like a giant bug with 4 arms and eyes that glowed green in the dim light. When it talked, its voice sounded like metal scraping against stone. Humans, the Zephyrian said, making the word sound like something dirty. You have requested permission to establish trade routes through Sector 7. This request is denied. Your species lacks the mental capacity to handle complex commerce. The other aliens nodded. The crystalline from the ice worlds made a sound, like breaking glass, which Jake had learned meant agreement. The water-dwelling Aquans bubbled in their tanks. The machine-like synthetics clicked and whirred. Jake kept his face calm, but inside he felt anger growing. These aliens used human-made medicine to cure their diseases. They ate food grown on human farms. Their computers ran on chips that only human factories could make. But they still treated humans like children who needed permission to cross the street. The Andromedan delegate floated forward. It looked like a jellyfish made of light, and its voice echoed in everyone's head rather than coming through the air. Perhaps the humans could serve as workers in the outer mining colonies, it suggested. Under proper supervision, of course. In a few hundred years, they might develop enough to handle simple tasks independently. More nodding from the council. Jake felt something snap inside him. Behind him, the other human delegates were packing their bags. Dr. Robert Kane, the chief scientist, folded his papers neatly. General Patricia Woods closed her military briefings. They had planned for this moment, hoped it would not come, but prepared for it anyway. The Zephyrian was still talking. Your technology is primitive. Your culture is violent. Your lifespans are too short for serious galactic citizenship. We offer you the chance to learn, from your betters to serve and grow under our guidance. Jake stood up. The sudden movement caused silence to fall over the chamber. In 3 years of meetings, no human had ever interrupted a council session. The aliens stared at him with their various eyes, sensors, and detecting organs. Jake looked at each of them slowly. The proud Zephyrian with its glowing eyes. The ancient keeper of worlds who claimed to be 10,000 years old. The war singer from the battle fleets. All of them so sure of their own importance. We came here, Jake said quietly, asking for partnership. We offered our knowledge, our resources, our friendship. His voice grew stronger. Lisa could hear it clearly from the viewing area above. We showed you our medical advances that could cure diseases your people have suffered from for centuries. We shared our agricultural techniques that could feed your hungry worlds. We offered our manufacturing processes that could build things faster and cheaper than your old methods. The aliens began to shift uncomfortably. They were not used to being spoken to this way by humans. But you did not want partners, Jake continued. You wanted servants. You wanted us to bow and scrape and beg for scraps from your table while you used our innovations to make your lives better. Dr. Kane stood up behind Jake, his briefcase in hand. Then General Woods. Then Dr. Sarah Johnson, the trade specialist. One by one, all 15 members of the human delegation rose to their feet. 3 years, Jake said. 3 years we have tried to find common ground. 3 years we have been patient while you treated us like insects beneath your notice. The Zephyrian's eyes flared brighter. You forget your place, human. We could destroy your entire species with a single command to our fleets. Jake smiled, and there was no warmth in it. You could try, he said. But you won't. Do you know why? The chamber was dead silent now. Because you need us more than we need you. Jake picked up his own briefcase, the one containing 3 years of carefully documented failures and insults. Earth hereby withdraws from all negotiations with the Galactic Federation. We will no longer seek your permission to exist in this galaxy. We will no longer accept your judgment on our worthiness. He turned toward the exit, and the other humans fell in behind him. This is not a retreat, Jake said, his words echoing in the vast chamber. This is a declaration of independence. Humanity will make its own way among the stars. The human delegation walked out together, their footsteps loud in the shocked silence. Behind them, the aliens sat frozen in disbelief. In 3,000 years of galactic history, no species had ever simply walked away from the Federation. As the doors closed behind them, Jake heard the first sounds of panic beginning to rise from the council chamber. Soon, he knew, they would understand exactly what they had lost. The news spread through the galaxy like fire through dry grass. Within 6 hours of Jake Morrison walking out of the council chamber, every major world knew that humanity had quit the Federation talks. What started as whispers in spaceports became panicked meetings in government buildings across 100 different worlds. On the water world of Aquanus Prime, Trade Minister Veltar tried to call his human suppliers for the 3rd time in an hour. The blue-skinned Aquan had built his entire career on managing the flow of human medical supplies to the outer colonies. His webbed fingers shook as he pressed the communication button again. Nothing. Complete silence from Earth. Veltar's assistant, a younger Aquan named Kef, swam into the office with a worried expression. Sir, I have checked all channels. The humans have cut off all communications with Federation worlds. Every single trade route is closed. Veltar felt his gills flutter with fear. Without human medicine, the plague on Kepler Station would kill thousands of his people. The humans had developed a cure that worked in days, while the best Federation medicine took months and often failed completely. On the research station orbiting Luna, Dr. Emma Collins watched the chaos unfold through her monitoring equipment. As Earth's chief expert on alien biology, she had been tracking Federation activities for years. Now she was seeing something that had never happened before in galactic history. Her partner, Dr. Ryan Walsh, pulled up holographic displays showing economic data from across the galaxy. The charts were mostly red, indicating serious problems. Look at this, Ryan said, pointing to a graph that showed sharp drops in production on 17 different worlds. They are realizing what they have lost, but they still do not understand how bad it really is. Emma nodded as she watched the communications traffic between alien worlds. The messages were getting more desperate by the hour. Show me the mining data from Kepler 442b. The display changed to show the rocky mining world, where humans had been extracting rare crystals for the past 5 years. The crystalline hive, the insect-like aliens who owned the planet, had always treated the human workers like slaves. They paid almost nothing and provided terrible living conditions. But the humans had done something the crystallines never expected. They had made the mining process work better than ever before. Human engineers had designed new tools and methods that increased crystal production by 300%. The crystallines had been so busy counting their profits that they never learned how the humans did it. Now Steve Parker, the human mining foreman, was loading the last shuttle with human workers and equipment. The crystallines watched in growing horror as their primary source of income prepared to disappear. Wait, buzzed the Hive Queen through her translator device. We can discuss better working conditions, perhaps improved payment schedules. Steve looked at the giant insect who had never spoken directly to a human before today. For 5 years, she had communicated only through her warrior drones, as if humans were too lowly to deserve her attention. Too late, Steve said simply. He climbed into the shuttle and gave the signal to launch. Below them, the crystal mines that had made the crystallines rich began to flood with water as the human-built pumping systems shut down. Back on Earth, President Diana Foster stood before the emergency session of the United Nations. The large assembly hall was packed with representatives from every nation. The decision to leave the Federation talks had been unanimous, but now they had to deal with the consequences. "We knew this day might come," President Foster said, her voice carrying clearly through the hall. "For 3 years, we have tried to find our place in galactic society through peaceful negotiation. We offered our hand in friendship and received only contempt in return." She gestured to a large screen showing the Federation's official response to humanity's withdrawal. The message was short and dismissive. The Galactic Federation does not recognize the authority of primitive species to withdraw from negotiations. Humans will return to discussions when they have learned proper respect for their superiors. They still do not understand. President Foster continued. They think this is a tantrum that will pass. They believe we will come crawling back when we realize how much we need them. In the audience, General Patricia Wood stood up. She had been part of Jake Morrison's delegation and had seen the aliens' arrogance firsthand. "Madam President, the first alien ships are already approaching our orbital stations. They are demanding immediate restoration of all trade agreements." President Foster smiled grimly. What did Admiral Brooks tell them? He informed them that Earth no longer recognizes Federation authority over human affairs. He was very polite about it. The first alien delegation had arrived at Earth's main orbital station just 4 hours after the withdrawal announcement. Admiral Kevin Brooks, commander of Earth's Space Defense Forces, had met them personally. The delegation consisted of representatives from 5 different species, all demanding that humans return to their place in the Federation hierarchy. Admiral Brooks had listened to their demands with perfect military courtesy. Then he had explained, in simple terms, that Earth was no longer interested in Federation membership. The aliens had become increasingly aggressive, threatening economic sanctions and military action. "You cannot survive without the Federation," the lead delegate, a tall, gray-skinned humanoid, had declared. "Your technology is primitive. Your resources are limited. You need us." Admiral Brooks had smiled and gestured toward the bustling space station around them. Human-built ships moved cargo between the orbital platforms. Human-designed factories processed materials from the asteroid belt. Human-operated communication arrays connected Earth to its growing network of colonies. "Do we?" he had asked. The delegation had left in anger, but Admiral Brooks knew they would be back, and they would not be alone. Dr. Emma Collins watched the alien ships gathering at the edge of the solar system. Her instruments showed more than 50 vessels from a dozen different species, all waiting to see what Earth would do next. "They are testing us," she told Ryan. "They want to see if we will break under pressure." Ryan pulled up another display, this one showing the status of human settlements across the galaxy. "Steve Parker is not the only one coming home. We are pulling out of every Federation world. The economic impact is going to be massive." Emma nodded. She had seen the projections. Human workers, engineers, doctors, and scientists were leaving alien worlds as fast as ships could carry them. Each departure would cause problems, but together they would create a crisis that the Federation had never faced before. On Mechanicus, the industrial world where robots built most of the galaxy's technology, Chief Engineer Zara Thompson was preparing to leave behind the automated mining system she had spent 2 years perfecting. The local robot collective had always treated her like a minor assistant, never bothering to learn how her innovations worked. Soon they would understand their mistake, but by then, it would be too late. 3 weeks had passed since humanity walked away from the Galactic Federation, and the galaxy was falling apart. The Andromedan Banking Consortium called an emergency meeting on their crystal homeworld. The massive jellyfish-like beings floated in their council chamber, their bodies flickering with worried colors. Chief Banker Zephlus projected the financial reports for all to see, and the numbers were terrible. "Galactic economic output has dropped by 17%, Zephlus announced, his mental voice filled with panic. 17% in just 3 weeks. If this continues, we face total economic collapse within 6 months. The other bankers pulsed with alarm. For 3,000 years, the galactic economy had grown steadily. Wars had barely affected it. Plagues had slowed it down but never stopped it. But now, because one small species had simply walked away, everything was crashing down. On the industrial world of Mechanicus, the robot collective was learning a hard lesson about human engineering. The massive factories that built starships and space stations had ground to a halt. Chief Processing Unit XJ7 stared at the broken mining equipment that Zara Thompson had left behind. The human engineer had built a system so complex and clever that the robots could not understand how it worked. Every time they tried to copy her designs, the machines exploded or simply stopped working. The humans had not just built better tools. They had built tools that required human thinking to operate. Unit XJ7 sent another desperate message to Earth, begging Zara to return. Like all the other messages, it received no reply. The humans had gone completely silent. In the outer rim of the galaxy on Harvest Moon 7, the situation was even worse. Captain Ben Rodriguez had finished evacuating the last human workers from the agricultural station. Behind him, acres of specially designed crops began to wither and die. The photosynthetic council, plant-like beings who absorbed sunlight for energy, watched helplessly as their food supply disappeared. They had ruled Harvest Moon 7 for centuries, growing basic crops that barely fed their people. Then the humans had arrived with seeds that grew faster, produced more food, and tasted better than anything the plants had ever created. Now those miracle crops were dying because only humans knew how to care for them properly. The council members turned their flower-like faces toward the departing human ships and felt something they had never experienced before: hunger. Counselor Petal of Morning tried one last time to contact Captain Rodriguez. "Please," she begged through the communication system. "Our people will starve without your knowledge. We can offer you better terms, more respect for your contributions." Ben looked at the alien he had worked with for 2 years. She had never called him by his name, always referring to him as the human worker or the seed tender. She had never thanked him for the innovations that saved her people from constant hunger. "You had your chance," Ben said sadly. "We offered partnership. You wanted servants. Now you have neither." The communication went dead as Ben's ship jumped to faster-than-light speed, carrying the last humans away from the dying agricultural world. Back in Federation space, the quantum communication network that connected the galaxy was failing. The massive relay stations that allowed instant messages between star systems had been maintained primarily by human technicians. The aliens had the basic knowledge to keep them running, but humans had made thousands of small improvements over the years d'etude. Chief Communications Officer Amanda Price coordinated the withdrawal of the last human technical teams from the relay stations. As each team left, the communication quality got worse. Messages that once traveled across the galaxy in seconds now took hours or failed completely. On the Federation capital world, the emergency council session had been going on for 3 days straight. The 12 species that ruled the galaxy were no longer united in their arrogance. Instead, they were blaming each other for the disaster. "This is your fault," screamed the Zephyrian delegate at the Warsinger representative. "Your military threats pushed the humans too far." The Warsinger, a creature that looked like living metal with glowing red eyes, clanged his weapons in anger. "My threats? You were the one who called them mentally inferior insects. I merely suggested they needed discipline." The Keeper of Worlds, ancient beyond measure, raised one withered hand for silence. "Blame will not solve our current crisis. We must face the truth. The humans have become essential to our civilization, and we never realized it." The crystalline delegate made the sound of breaking glass that indicated disagreement. "Essential? They are barely evolved mammals. Surely our advanced technology can replace their simple contributions." "Simple?" The Aquan representative bubbled with bitter laughter. "Try replacing the medicine that keeps your eggs from hatching defects. Try growing food without their agricultural methods. Try keeping your ships flying without their maintenance techniques." On Earth, Dr. Peter Hayes presented his analysis to the Global Defense Council. The economist had been tracking the Federation's response to humanity's withdrawal, and the results were better than anyone had hoped. They built their entire society on the assumption that they were irreplaceable, Peter explained to the assembled leaders. They never considered that we might be irreplaceable to them. President Foster studied the reports showing the growing chaos in Federation space. How long before they come begging? Some already have, Admiral Brooks reported. We have received 47 official requests for renewed trade relationships. All of them offer slightly better terms than before, but none of them offer true equality. General Woods leaned forward. What about military action? The war singers have been making threats. Admiral Brooks smiled grimly. Let them try. Half. Their fleet runs on human-designed engines. The other half relies on human-maintained supply lines. They can threaten us all they want, but they cannot afford to actually attack. The truth was becoming clear across the galaxy. The aliens had spent so long looking down on humanity that they had never noticed how dependent they had become on human innovation. Humans did not just work in alien factories and farms. They improved everything they touched, making it better, faster, and more efficient. Without humans, the galaxy was discovering that its advanced civilization was not so advanced after all. The proud species that had ruled the stars for millennia were learning what it meant to be truly alone. And in the vast emptiness between the stars, human ships were already moving toward new destinations, carrying the seeds of a different kind of galactic civilization. 6 months after walking away from the Federation, humanity was building something new among the stars. Colonel Michelle Carter stood on the bridge of the Earth ship Freedom as it approached the troubled world of New Geneva. The planet had been suffering under Federation trade restrictions for decades. The local population, a peaceful species called the gentlefolk, had been slowly starving because the Federation controlled all food shipments to their world. Michelle had volunteered to lead the first independent human aid mission. Her ship carried enough food and medicine to help 50,000 gentlefolk survive the coming winter. More importantly, it carried something the Federation had never offered: help without strings attached. Colonel Carter came the voice of the gentlefolk, leader over the communication system. We are grateful for your offer of assistance, but we must ask, what do you want in return? Michelle smiled. After dealing with the Federation for so long, these people expected every act of kindness to come with a price. Nothing, she said simply. We help because it is the right thing to do. The silence that followed spoke volumes. In 300 years of Federation rule, no one had ever helped the gentlefolk without demanding payment or loyalty in return. On Earth's new independence station, Ambassador Paul Henderson welcomed the strangest diplomatic mission in human history. The visitors were called the Quiet Ones, an aquatic species that had been ignored by the Federation for centuries because they had no valuable resources and lived too far from the main trade routes. The Quiet Ones had never been allowed to speak at Federation meetings. Their representative, a graceful being that looked like a cross between a dolphin and an octopus, communicated through musical sounds that humans found beautiful. We have watched your species for many years, the Quiet One sang through the translation device. You alone showed kindness to those the Federation considered worthless. We wish to learn from you. Paul felt honored. These beings had traveled halfway across the galaxy just to meet with humans as equals. It was something the arrogant Federation members would never understand. Meanwhile, in a secret laboratory on Luna, Dr. Susan Miller made a breakthrough that would change everything. She had been working on faster-than-light communication technology, trying to improve on the Federation's slow and unreliable quantum relay system. Her new invention used quantum entanglement in a way no one had ever tried before. Instead of sending messages through relay stations that could fail or be controlled by enemies, her system created direct links between any 2 points in the galaxy. The communication was instant, unbreakable, and impossible to intercept. Paul, are you seeing this? Susan asked, testing the new system by calling Ambassador Henderson on Independence Station. Perfectly clear, Paul replied, amazed. The signal was so clean it sounded like Susan was standing right next to him, even though she was millions of miles away. Susan, this changes everything. We can coordinate with human colonies and allies across the entire galaxy without depending on Federation infrastructure. The implications were huge. The Federation maintained control partly through their monopoly on galactic communications. With Susan's invention, humanity could build its own network, free from alien interference. On the frontier world of Liberty's Edge, farmer Tony Garcia was proving that humans could thrive anywhere. The planet had been declared uninhabitable by Federation surveys, its soil too rocky and its climate too harsh for conventional agriculture. But Tony had not given up. Using techniques developed on Earth's most difficult terrain, he had slowly transformed the barren landscape. His innovative terraforming methods involved specially designed plants that could break down rock into fertile soil while surviving in extreme conditions. Now, 18 months after starting his lonely farm, Tony's settlement was home to 3,000 people from a dozen different species. Refugees from Federation worlds had heard about the human colony that welcomed everyone and turned wasteland into paradise. The Federation said this world was worthless, said Kryn, a young crystalline who had fled the failing mining worlds. They said nothing could grow here. Tony looked out over the green fields that stretched to the horizon. They were wrong about a lot of things. Admiral Christina Adams commanded humanity's new humanitarian fleet from her flagship, the New Hope. The fleet consisted of 50 ships, all dedicated to providing disaster relief and medical aid to worlds in crisis. Their current mission took them to the water world of Tidal Prime, where a massive storm had destroyed the main population centers. The Federation had promised aid, but delivered nothing useful. Their relief supplies were the wrong type of food for the local species, and their medical equipment was incompatible with alien biology. Christina's fleet brought supplies specifically designed for each species they helped. Human doctors had studied the biology of hundreds of alien races, not to control them but to help them when disaster struck. Admiral, reported Captain Danny Brooks, Christina's second-in-command. The Tidal Folk leaders want to speak with you personally. The leader of the Tidal Folk was an ancient being who looked like a living wave. When it spoke, its voice sounded like the ocean itself. Human Admiral, the wave being said, for 6 months we have waited for Federation aid that never came. You arrive without being asked and offer help without payment. Why? Christina thought of all the Federation meetings where aliens had spoken of human inferiority. Because when someone is drowning, you don't ask if they deserve to be saved. You just save them. Back in Federation space, the old alliance was crumbling. The Zephyrian homeworld faced complete economic collapse as their trade routes failed. Other Federation members were starting to make secret deals with human colonies and allies. The War Singers, once the Federation's strongest military force, watched helplessly as half their fleet broke down without human maintenance. Their proud warships, symbols of galactic dominance, sat dead in space while human vessels moved freely through territories the Federation could no longer patrol. President Foster received a report that made her smile. 47 worlds have declared independence from the Federation in the past month, General Woods informed her. They are all requesting diplomatic relations with Earth. And the Federation's response? Panic. Complete panic. They have lost control of the outer territories. Their communication network is failing. Their economy is in free fall. Some council members are privately asking if we would consider peace talks. Foster leaned back in her chair. Peace talks? They still think this is about negotiation. They still don't understand that we're not coming back to the table as supplicants. Through the window of her office, Foster could see the construction of humanity's newest project. The first human-built city ship, designed to carry 50,000 people to the unexplored regions beyond Federation space. Humanity was not just surviving without the Federation. They were thriving, growing, and building a better future among the stars. And across the galaxy, other species were beginning to realize that there was an alternative to the Federation's arrogant rule. The old order was dying, and from its ashes something better was being born. 2 years had passed since Jake Morrison walked out of the Federation Council chamber, and the galaxy was a completely different place. Jake stood once again in a council chamber, but this one was nothing like the old Federation building. The new Galactic Assembly Hall on Independence Station was built in a perfect circle, with no raised platforms or golden thrones. Every species sat at the same level, in chairs of equal height. The walls were decorated with artwork from dozens of different worlds, showing the beauty of cooperation rather than conquest. Jake wore the simple blue uniform of Earth's Galactic Ambassador, a title that had not existed 2 years ago. Around him sat representatives from over 200 worlds, many of which had never been allowed to speak in the old Federation. The gentlefolk delegate, a small furry being named Soft Voice, stood to address the assembly. Before the humans came, his people had been dying slowly under Federation neglect. Now they were healthy and prosperous, growing food not just for themselves, but for their new allies. "Friends," Soft Voice said in his quiet way. 2 years ago, we believed the galaxy was ruled by those who cared nothing for the weak. Today, we know that strength comes not from domination, but from lifting others up. Applause filled the chamber, not the polite clapping of diplomatic meetings, but the genuine enthusiasm of beings who had found hope where none existed before. At her command station on the Free World's Defense Fleet flagship Liberty, Admiral Lisa Martinez watched the ceremony through the ship's communication system. She smiled as she saw her old friend Jake accepting congratulations from delegates who represented half the galaxy. The Free World's Defense Fleet was unlike any military force the galaxy had ever seen. It included ships and crews from 47 different species, all working together to protect the growing alliance of free worlds. They had fought no wars, but their mere existence had prevented several conflicts through the power of unified deterrence. "Admiral," reported Captain Sam Parker, Steve's younger brother who had followed his path from mining engineer to starship officer. "We are receiving another surrender request from the Zephyrian battle group in Sector 12. Lisa nodded. The proud insect warriors who had once dismissed humans as inferior were now begging for safe passage through human-protected space. Their own territory had become too dangerous as various Federation remnants fought each other for the scraps of their former empire. "Grant them passage," Lisa said. "But remind them that in our space, all beings are treated with equal respect." On the rebuilt world of New Harvest, formerly the dying agricultural station of Harvest Moon 7, Dr. Emma Collins walked through fields that had once been barren rock. The Galactic Research Cooperative had chosen this world as their headquarters, and it had become a symbol of what cooperation could achieve. The cooperative included scientists from 68 different species, all working together on projects that benefited everyone. Their first major success had been the cure for the Andromedan plague, a disease that had killed millions across the galaxy. The Federation's research teams had failed to find a cure for decades, but the cooperative had solved it in 8 months, by combining knowledge from many different medical traditions. Emma's research partner, a crystalline scientist named Clear Thought, approached with excitement glowing in her crystal structure. "Emma, the Quantum Agriculture Project is showing incredible results. We can now grow food on worlds that were completely sterile just 1 year ago." It was this kind of breakthrough that made Emma proud of what they had built. The old Federation had hoarded knowledge, keeping the best discoveries for the ruling species. The cooperative shared everything freely, believing that knowledge belonged to all intelligent life. Back on Earth, President Diana Foster prepared for the most important speech of her career. Tomorrow would mark the 2nd anniversary of humanity's withdrawal from Federation negotiations, and the galaxy would be watching as she addressed the first Galactic Liberty Summit. The summit had drawn representatives from over 300 worlds, including some that were still technically part of the crumbling Federation. Even a few of the old Federation Council members had come, though they sat in the audience rather than on any ruling council. Foster's speech would officially announce the formation of the Galactic Alliance of Free Worlds, a voluntary association, based on principles that the old Federation had never understood: mutual respect, shared benefit, and the right of every species to determine its own future. As she reviewed her notes one final time, Foster thought about how far they had all come. 2 years ago, humans had been treated as second-class citizens in their own galaxy. Now they were helping to build a civilization that welcomed every form of intelligent life as equals. The next morning, the assembly hall was packed beyond capacity. Beings who had never been allowed in the same room as Federation Council members now sat side by side, listening as President Foster took the stage. "Friends," she began, using the same word that had become the standard greeting in the new alliance. "2 years ago, my species walked away from a system that demanded our submission in exchange for scraps of recognition. We did not do this out of anger, but out of hope for something better." She gestured to the diverse crowd filling the hall. "Look around you. See what we have built together. Former enemies working as partners. Forgotten species given voice and respect. Worlds that were dying now thriving under the care of their new allies." The Zephyrian delegate, the same being who had called humans mentally inferior, sat in the far corner of the hall. His homeworld was on the verge of joining the alliance, desperate for the trade and aid that only the free worlds could provide. "Some say we destroyed the old order," Foster continued. "But destruction was never our goal. We simply chose to build something new, something better, something that serves the needs of all life rather than the greed of a few." She paused as applause filled the chamber, then raised her hand for silence. "The Galactic Alliance of Free Worlds is not perfect. We will make mistakes, we will face challenges, but we will face them together, as equals, as friends, as partners in the greatest adventure any of us can imagine, the journey to build a truly free galaxy." The applause that followed shook the station. Outside, through the great windows of the assembly hall, the combined fleets of the Alliance hung in space like a constellation of hope, ships from hundreds of worlds all flying under the banner of freedom and cooperation. The old Federation still existed, but only barely. A handful of stubborn worlds clung to the ancient hierarchies, but their power was broken. The galaxy had moved beyond them, choosing hope over fear, cooperation over domination. Jake Morrison, watching from his ambassador's chair, thought about the moment 2 years ago when he had walked away from everything the galaxy had offered. He had gambled the future of his species on the belief that there was something better waiting among the stars. Looking around the hall at the faces of beings from across the galaxy, all united in their commitment to freedom and mutual respect, Jake knew that the gamble had paid off. The galaxy would never be the same, and that was exactly what they had hoped for.